preface. You can start from here. Yes.
As far as we, the followers of Vedic civilization, are concerned, we accept the Vedic history of the whole universe, which consists of different planetary systems called Svargalokas or the higher planetary system, Martalokas or the intermediary planetary system, and Patal-lokas or the lower planetary system.
Okay, so we'll just have a little look at the map there.
Yeah.
Okay, this is done by the devotees. So we have the planetary systems, the Svargalok. Now according to this map, it says that the upper planetary systems are subtle. And the middle planetary systems, just like the bodies that we have, they're subtle and gross combined. That's the Earth planets. And then the lower ones, they're engaged in gross sense gratification. Although a lot of them are more opulent even than the higher planetary systems. So we accept this form of the map of the universe according to the Vedas. Okay.
The modern historians of this earth cannot supply historical evidences of events that occurred before 5,000 years ago. And the anthropologists say that 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens...
Sorry. Okay, yes.
Homo sapiens had not appeared on this planet because evolution has not reached that point. But Vedic histories, the Puranas and Mahabharata, relate human histories which extend millions and billions of years into the past.
Okay, so we have some very interesting information about that, because the anthropologists, they study the source of the human species. And let me find it now. Yes. Prabhuji didn't come tonight, the one who asked the question about Pashugna? Huh?
Not yet.
Okay, I have that for him. And then we have something about the distribution of Krishna book. We'll read it when there are a few more people in the room. It's very interesting. Yes. So amongst the anthropologists, archaeologists, sociologists, they have a saying that never chase after a bus or a theory of creation. There's always a new one coming around the corner. So the most recent of the anthropologists tracing the human origins, there was an article written. You can read this, it's hysterical. Okay.
Anthropologists trace human origins back to one large goat. Wait, that can't be right, scientists say. Researchers say their goat-human evolution theory, on second thought, does feel a little off. New York. An international team of anthropologists announced Monday it had traced the lineage of Homo sapiens back to a single large Pliocene goat.
Pliocene era.
Era, sorry.
Yeah. It's like prehistoric.
Prehistoric, yeah. We have mapped out each of the diverse branches of human family back to the dawn of our species. Douglas Oakes of Columbia University said, and found that common ancestor of all living humans was an immense and cognitively advanced goat that roamed the earth 3.4 million years ago, foraging for adds ox. Pausing for a moment. You know what? Now that I am actually saying it out loud, it's starting to sound a little weird. Is this the right research paper? After staring down at his notes and quickly shuffling through some files, a visibly flustered ox, is it the correct way to say ox?
Oaks.
Oaks called for aides to cut the looping CGI animation projected behind him, which showed several horned proto-humans covered in thick full-body coats of hair walking across an African savanna. Anthropologists claim the early human pictured above subsisted largely on weight. Is that really the right picture? If everyone could just give me a minute, this all made sense when we started the conference. Oak said, Kevin, can you hand me that folder? Funded by a grant from Smithsonian Institute, the 17-year inquiry into the origins of human race brought together 12 top anthropologists from around the world to pursue the single large goat theory, which participants in Monday's presentation assured audience members felt more plausible when we came up with it. Really it did.
17 years.
17 years. The landmark study culminates in the week's release of 270-page reports explaining the structure of prehistoric humans' chart, upturned woolly tails, and identifying the roots of the early Indo-European language in goat bleating, which Oakes stated, maybe they should have double-checked real quick before the paper went to publication. There may be some slight inconsistencies in a few of our results, but I assure you, these bone samples and behavioral analysis are all, well, look, I'm going to stand here
I'm not going to stand here.
Oh, I'm not going to stand here and tell you they are not a little ridiculous looking. Said Regina Hubbard Price, Associate Director of American Anthropological Association. Obviously, with hindsight, yes, it's somewhat odd that our theory presupposes complex hunter-gatherer societies composed of large 250-pound bipedal goat men. But a lot of thought went into this, I swear. Maybe we should have listened to Cliff back at the beginning when he kept emphasizing that humans do not look like goats.
So yeah, this is the way the anthropologists carry on their research.
This from the conference?
Yeah, this is a real.
This is so funny.
Yes. Yes, we have your question ready for you. Okay, your answer ready for you.
माताजी थोड़ा हिंदी में बताना, मेरे को समझ नहीं आया।
वो एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट, आप जानते कि एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट क्या है? वो खोज कर देते कि वो मनुष्य कहाँ से आए, क्योंकि वेदों को नहीं मानते, तो इसी 270 पेज के रिपोर्ट में उसमें लिखा है कि ह्यूमंस, वो जो मनुष्य के उससे पहले बकरा था और बकरे से आते। वो क्योंकि वेदों को नहीं मानते तो इसलिए इनके ज्ञान कहाँ से आते, तो इसमें लिखा है कि वो भी नहीं मानते, वो विश्वास भी नहीं करते। So yesterday Prabhuji asked, what is your name?
Tribhuvannath.
Tribhuvannath. Okay, Prabhu. He asked, what was your question?
A question yesterday, Srila Prabhupada was saying, translation of the Prabhupada, there are two persons who do not accept Bhagavata. The first one, the Buddha, and the second one, those who are killer of their
Soul. Yes.
So I was thinking about it from the angle of Gita, that how can the soul be killed? It seems the Gita analyzed that the soul cannot be killed, cannot be water, cannot be water, nothing can destroy the soul.
So in the Ishopanishad, the third slok, you can read this?
Yeah.
Or Prabhu, you like to?
Asuryanamatiloka andhena tamasavritah tamste pretya vigachanti yeke chadma hanojanaah. Should I read?
Yes, please
The
go on.
killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance.
So we've taken out a portion of Prabhupada's purport that answers your question that how can the soul be killed?
Intelligent human beings must always remember that soul obtains a human form after an evolution of many millions of years in the cycle of transmigration. The material world is sometimes compared to an ocean, and the human body is compared to a solid boat designed especially to cross this ocean. The Vedic scriptures and the acharyas or saintly teachers are compared to expert boatmen, and the facilities of the human body are compared to favorable breezes that help the boat ply smoothly to its desired destination. If with all these facilities a human being does not fully utilize his life for self-realization, he must be considered an Atmaha, a killer of the soul. Sri Ishopanishad warns in clear terms that killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance, to suffer perpetually. Pashubnath, the animal killer, you can analyze the meaning in two ways. Animal killer means not exactly those who are butchers or ordinary man who kills animal and eat, but even a person who does not take care of his self-realization, he is also animal killer. He is killing himself. He is also animal killer. This life is meant for self-realization, but he is not taking interest in self-realization. He is taking pleasure only just like animal. So I am also an animal. I am killing myself. If I don't take interest in self-realization, and if I glide down again into the cycle of birth and death, then I am killing myself, suiciding. That is our willing, killing ourselves willingly. If I know that
Something's wrong. Press it in. No, it's not okay.
then maybe the bowl is not working. Electricity is gone.
वो उधर था माता जी, दूर पड़ेगा। वो दूर पड़ेगा।
Just a second.
Did it reach?
I will do that.
If not, there's enough battery on the computer, it's okay. Maybe we'll just run it on battery. Yeah? Okay.
It's changing?
It's okay?
No, it needs
All right. Sorry. Okay.
Killing ourselves willingly. If I know that I do this, I will be punished like this. And if I still do this, then I am killing myself.
Is that a good enough answer for you?
The killing words.
Yes.
The killing words like a random thing here in this paragraph. So the point I was trying to find out yesterday from the angle of Bhagavad-Gita.
Yeah.
The soul cannot be killed. There has not been any emphasis regards to how the soul can be killed. Only what as in killing. How do we actually kill our soul since the soul cannot be killed?
The word Atma has 3 different meanings because in that sloka it's called Atmaha, right? So Atma can be killing the body, killing the mind, killing the soul. So if we don't utilize our spiritual life, this human life, for self-realization, it's as if we're killing our soul because we're not linking up with the purpose of our human life. So that, in that sense, Atma can mean because we know we're going to be punished if we don't utilize this human life for self-realization. So we're actually killing ourselves because we're missing the opportunity. After millions and millions of births, we finally come to the human species. So in that way, we're killing our own soul because we're going to have to drop down again into the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so killing the Atma.
Yeah, I agree with you that the word Atman means mind, sometimes body, soul.
Yeah.
But in a real sense, if we go through the analysis of the
I'll give him the mic. Yeah.
in a real sense, if we go through the analysis of the Gita, I see not get the point clear how we kill our soul. Anyway, I will take this from the angle of Upanishad. So I want to really attach one question, a clarification.
Okay.
I see it's not a common play that this temple is called Angreshmandi from all the history we have, the material you have given us. Angreshmandi. Can you please give the reason why this temple was being called Angreshmandi?
Well, it's called the Angrezi Mandir by the people who don't know the real name. Angrezi is the way the Indian people say English, the English temple, because we have a lot of foreign devotees, and especially in the beginning, it was only foreign devotees. There were very few Indian devotees who joined the temple. So they came to see the Angrezis at that time. So it was called the Angrezi temple. It's not a proper name, it's just what the local people would say.
Mataji, he just missed one word that you mentioned in the answer, as if. So can I just...
Yes, go on, please.
Mataji said, as if kill. It's not exactly killing the soul. Soul is always eternal. Soul is not killed. According to Bhagavad-Gita, just like we know that, what is that? It's like it's not killed. No, it's not killed. Soul is not killed. So what Mataji explained is as if the soul is killed. Just like if I lie down in the class, so you may say that, oh, why are you lying? Why are you not listening to the class? Are you a dead man? So it's figurative. You understand figurative? One is literal. Other thing is called figurative. As if it's not, soul is not killed. It's eternal, but because its function is suspended, its soul's function is to render service to Krishna. So its function is suspended at least for some duration of time. Is it as if the soul is killed? As if killing myself. Not exactly killing myself, but as if killing myself because I am again identifying myself as a material body. So I will go down into lower species. So I still exist, right? Otherwise, who is going down into lower bodies? Soul is going down into
This one is coming from your own understanding. Understanding based on what I read in scriptures. I supported it, right?
As Prabhupada says here,
supported by our acharyas.
as Prabhupada says here, if with all these facilities a human being does not fully utilize his life for self-realization, he must be considered an Atmaha, a killer of the soul. Sri Ishopanishad warns in clear terms that the killer of the soul is destined to enter into the darkest region of ignorance to suffer perpetually. So, when the Krishna book first came out, the devotees were so enthusiastic to distribute. We have one little Sankirtan story here you can read.
The 100-degree fever of Sankirtan in the early 1970s in America can only be described as an epidemic. At one point, when we were completely out of books, waiting for Dai Nippon's shipment of Krishna books to arrive, the leader on the west coast was Karandar. His office was at the Karandar. His office was at the Los Angeles Temple in New Dwarka. During Mangalarti, the rumor spread that there were 100 cases of Krishna books stashed in Karandar's office. They were Karandara's personal property and earmarked for some important purpose. The fact that he was the ultimate power meant absolutely nothing to us. Buddhimanta and the Garga Muni
No, and the gang.
and the gang, sorry. Buddhimanta and the gang from New Jagannath Puri, Puri, San Francisco.
Now, Buddhimanta Prabhu, he was a big book distributor, and at the end of his life, he got a brain tumor. So he came here, and room number 3, he went back to Godhead. Okay, go on.
Without the least consideration of the exalted position of Karandara or the extensive damage, we mercilessly broke down his door, took every single book, and went on a 3-day book distribution marathon. By that time, the shipment of Krishna books arrived from Dai Nippon, and the fever spread further and further. Buddhimanta was the total personification of Maha outrageousness. Everything he did should have been filmed for posterity. He was 100% convinced of only one thing, that Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of the absolute truth, that there was no need to look any further. The only need was to distribute Prabhupada's books. The first traveling Sankirtan party left San Francisco Temple, New Jagannath Puri, in the summer of 1971. It consisted of about 15 brahmacharis crammed into 2 vehicles. We were out for about 3.5 weeks. On the last day, the 25th day of our austerity, the day before returning to New Jagannath Puri Temple, we ended up in a neighborhood of split-level executive homes, nicely landscaped yards, clean streets, lots of trees. Arriving just as darkness fell, about 8 p.m. on a pleasant Saturday evening, we piled out of both cars, shikhas trailing, dhotis blowing, shouting Haribo. We descended upon this peaceful community like a hurricane. We ran Hariboling from door to door, distributing as many of Srila Prabhupada's books as possible and running to the next house. After an hour, we were on fire. Buddhimanta especially. He ran up to the door and rang the bell. There he stood, taking up the entire doorway space, eyes bugging out, sweating profusely, neck beads taut against his throat, and fire engine red-faced. Hare Krishna, he announced to the bewildered housewife who unwittingly opened the door. She took one look at this escaped lunatic from the nut house in Vrindavan and fainted dead away on the spot. It only took about 5 minutes for 1,000 police sirens to split the calm air. They surrounded us. They had us. It looked bad, but they didn't know exactly what to do with us. We didn't really do anything wrong. So they didn't take us to jail. They did talk to Buddhimanta for about 30 minutes to make certain that even though he looked and acted spiritually insane, that he was in fact okay, not violent and harmless. Stuff like this happened in days of Sankirtan revolution in America. Long may the flag of Sankirtan book distribution wave.
Yes. So Prabhupada again and again told us these books are not only for distribution. These books are for us. He wrote them for us so that we would read them and understand them. We're not booksellers. So here the devotees were so enthusiastic to distribute the Krishna book. They even broke into the temple president's room and stole all the books so they could distribute them. But now is a time, because we can't go out on book distribution at this time, we can go deeply into understanding Prabhupada's books better. Okay, so now we're up to, we've gone here. Sorry. I don't know why it's doing this. Ah, here. Okay.
For example, from these literatures we are given the histories of Krishna's appearance and disappearances millions and billions of years ago. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that both he and Arjuna had many births before, and that he, Krishna, could remember all of them and that Arjuna could not. This illustrates the difference between knowledge of Krishna and that of Arjuna. Arjuna might have been a very great warrior, a well-cultured member of Kuru dynasty, but after all he was an ordinary human being, whereas Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the possessor of unlimited knowledge. Because he possesses unlimited knowledge, Krishna has a memory that is boundless. Krishna's knowledge is so perfect that he remembers all the incidences of his appearances some millions and billions of years in the past. But Arjuna's memory and knowledge are limited by time and space, for he is an ordinary human being. In the 4th chapter, Krishna states that he can remember instructing the lessons of Bhagavad-Gita some millions of years ago to sun god Vivaswan.
Okay. So in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, the first verse, Krishna begins to describe when he first spoke the Bhagavad-Gita. You can read this now. The duration, yes.
The duration of
Well,
material...
here, this is the sloka number. This is the purport to Bhagavad-Gita 8:17.
The duration of material universe is limited. It is manifested in cycles of kalpas. A kalpa is a day of Brahma, and one day of Brahma consists of thousands of cycles of 4 yugas.
1,000 cycles. 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas.
8,000 cycles of 4 yugas or ages. Satya, Treta, Dwapar and Kali. The cycle of Satya is lasts, what is that?
17 lakhs.
17 lakh 28,000 years. How do you say?
1 million.
728,000 years. Treta Yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. Dwapar Yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally Kali Yuga, the Yuga we have now been experiencing for the past 5,000 years, lasts 432,000 years. In Kali Yuga, vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the Yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as a Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. Then the process is set rolling again. These 4 yugas, rotating 1,000 times, comprise 1 day of Brahma, and same number comprises 1 night. Brahma lives 100 of such years and then dies. These 100 years by earth calculations total to 311 trillion and 40 billion earth years. By these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable. But from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash.
Now here's 4.1.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to ISKCON.
So this is
20. 5,000 years ago, Manu spoke the Bhagavad-Gita to his disciples and son Maharaj, to his disciple and son Maharaj ISKCON, the king of this planet Earth. The age of the current Manu is calculated to last some 305,300,000 years, of which 120,400,000 years have passed. Accepting that before the birth of Manu, the Gita was spoken by the Lord to his disciple, the sun god Vivaswan, a rough estimate is that Gita was spoken at least 120,400,000 years ago. And in human society, it has been extant for 2 million years. It was re-spoken by the Lord again to Arjuna about 5,000 years ago. That is a rough estimate of the history of Gita, according to the Gita itself and according to the version of the speaker, Lord Shri Krishna. A Mahayuga consists of 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. The duration of these 4 yugas diminishes respectively from 4/10 to 3/10 to 2/10 to 1/10 of Mahayuga.
Okay.
Nowadays, it is a fashion of atheistic class of men to try to become God by following some mystic process. Generally, the atheists claim to be God by dint of their imagination or their meditational prowess. Krishna is not that kind of God. He does not become God by manufacturing some mystic process of meditation, nor does he become God by undergoing the severe austerities of the mystic yogic exercises. Properly speaking, he never becomes God because he is the Godhead in all circumstances.
Okay, so now we have a very interesting video here of one guru telling us how we can become God. When does a human being become God? So we're just taking the key point of his video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. Okay?
But if grace blossoms within you, you yourself become God. You are not looking after anything else because grace has blossomed within you. You have become that, what you are aspiring for.
Okay, so according to the Mayavadis, by grace, I don't know what grace means in that context, but by grace we can all become God. So now, properly speaking, Krishna never becomes God because he is the Godhead in all circumstances.
Donkey.
Yes.
Within the prison of his maternal uncle Kamsa, where his father and mother were confined, Krishna appeared outside his mother's body as the four-handed Vishnu Narayana. Then he turned himself into a baby and told his father to carry him to the house of Nanda Maharaj and his wife Yashoda. When Krishna was just a small baby, the gigantic demoness Putana attempted to kill him, but when he sucked her breast, he pulled out her life. That is the difference between the real Godhead and a God manufactured in a mystic factory. Krishna had no chance to practice the mystic yoga process, yet he manifested himself as a Supreme Personality of Godhead at every step, from infancy to childhood, from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to young manhood. In this book, Krishna, all of his activities as a human being are described. Although Krishna plays like a human being, he always maintains his identity as a Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay, so now we can see here Vasudeva and Devaki, they prayed that the Lord become their son. They wanted a son like Krishna. And Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj's prayers were different. So we can read the difference here.
When a pure devotee prays, "My dear Lord, I want you for my son," Krishna accepts his prayer. Vasudeva and Devaki became Krishna's parents in this way. In a previous life, they underwent severe austerities. They were married, but they had no sex. They were determined that unless they could get the Lord as their son, they would not have a child. So they performed severe austerities for many thousands of years. Then the Lord appeared to them and asked, "What do you want?" "Sir, we want a son like you." "How can you get a son like me? I will become your son." That the Lord's associates are not ordinary is proved by the fact that they often undergo extreme austerities or great sacrifices to become his friends or parents. For example, Vasudeva and Devaki, who took the role of Krishna's father and mother, executed many lifetimes of austerity in preparation. Soon after his birth, Krishna described to them what they had undergone in a previous life to receive the benediction of having him as their son. Both of you practiced severe austerities for 12,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. During that time, your mind was always absorbed in me. When you were executing devotional service and always thinking of me within your heart, I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart is therefore always pure At that time, I also appeared before you in this form just to fulfill your desire. And I asked you to ask whatever you ask, whatever you desire. At that time, you wished to have me born as your son. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, page 44-45. Vasudeva and Devaki, in their previous life, Shatarupa and other name I just forget.
Prabhupada said.
The husband and wife, after marriage, they began to prosecute tapasya. What was that tapasya? That if we can get Krishna as our child, then we will have sex life. Otherwise not. Otherwise we shall go on tapasya. So when for many thousands of years they underwent tapasya, Krishna came. What do you want? They said that we want a child like you. Then we can have our marital life. Otherwise we shall go on tapasya. So alright, but there is no proxy for me. There is no proxy of me. Then I shall become your child. Then they agreed to become father and mother. In their previous 2 births, they had also been husband and wife, and in each of these lifetimes, the Lord had accepted them as his parents. First in his incarnation as Krishnagarbha, and then as Vamanadeva.
Now, you see, they asked a benediction from the Lord, and he fulfilled their benediction. He had to become their son because they had performed so much tapasya. He wanted to satisfy them. Now, Nanda and Yashoda's desires were slightly different.
Sri Nanda and Yashoda, however, prayed to render the best devotional service to Krishna, and it was Brahma who awarded the fulfillment of their prayer. Thus, the personality of God had demonstrated that a benediction from his devotee is more valuable than the one directly from him.
Yes, so not only did they get benedicted by Krishna's devotee, but they didn't ask Krishna to do anything. They just wanted to serve him. So therefore, Krishna satisfied the desire of Vasudeva and Devaki. He became their son, but he was more attracted to the devotion of Nanda and Yashoda, so he immediately left them and went to their home to become their son. Okay? Since Krishna is all attractive.
Yeah. Since Krishna is all attractive, one should know that all his desires should be focused on Krishna. In the Bhagavad-Gita, it is said that the individual person is a proprietor or master of the body, but Krishna, who is the super soul present in everyone's heart, is the supreme proprietor and the supreme master of each and every individual body.
All right. So when Krishna lived in Braj, after Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill, the cowherd men were discussing with Nanda Maharaj about wonderful Krishna. We'll read about this later. But they just described, just in a nutshell, all the amazing things that Krishna did while he was still just a small child.
Without understanding the intricacies of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and without knowing his uncommon spiritual opulences, the innocent cowherd boys and men of Vrindavan began to discuss his wonderful activities, which surpassed the activities of all men. He is now only 7 years old. How is it possible for him to lift Govardhan hill in one hand and hold it up just as a king of elements holds a lotus flower? When he was simply a small baby and could not even see properly, he killed a great demon Putana. While sucking her breast, he also sucked out her life air. When he was only 3 months old, he was sleeping underneath a hand-driven cart. Being hungry for his mother's breast, he began to cry and throw his legs upwards. And from the kicking of his small feet, the cart immediately broke apart and fell to pieces. When he was only 1 year old, he was carried away by the Trunavarta demon disguised as a whirlwind. And although he was taken very high in the sky, he simply hung on the neck of the demon and forced him to fall from the sky and immediately die. Once his mother, being disturbed by his stealing butter, tied him to a wooden mortar, and the child pulled it towards a pair of trees known as Yamala Arjuna and caused them to fall. Once, when he was engaged in tending the calves in the forest along with Balaram, a demon named Bakasura appeared, and Krishna at once bifurcated the demon's beak. When the demon known as Vatsasur entered among the cows tended by Krishna with a desire to kill him. He immediately detected the demon, killed him and threw him into a tree. When Krishna along with Balaram entered the Talvan forest, the demon Dhenukasur in the shape of an ass attacked them and was immediately killed by Balaram. When Pralambasur entered among Krishna's coward friends, Krishna caused him to be killed by Balaram. Therefore, Krishna saved his friends and cows from a severe forest fire. Thereafter, Krishna saved his friends and cows from a severe forest fire. He chastised the Kaliya serpent in the lake of the Yamuna river and forced him to leave the vicinity of Yamuna. He thereby made the water of Yamuna poisonless.
So this is the way the pure devotees are always meditating on the wonderful activities of Krishna, from his childhood, the Kumar Lila, up to his youthful boyhood, then went up to Yovana Lila. Then he leaves Vrindavan. So the Brajabasis are always remembering the wonderful things that Krishna did. And everywhere they look, they're seeing Krishna because they see all the things that he did, everything related to Krishna within Braj. So this Krishna book helps us to train our mind naturally to see Krishna by remembering all the things that he did here in Braj. We're so fortunate to be in Vrindavan because the dust, the trees and the birds are already back to Godhead, Srila Prabhupada said. And the dust was touched by Krishna's lotus feet. So that's, if you have any desire, any prayer for serving Krishna, you just have to pray to the dust even. And that dust can satisfy your desires just like a kalpavriksha tree. So by hearing the wonderful activities of Krishna in Krishna book, our mind can automatically, naturally become attracted to Krishna's beautiful activities, and that way our life becomes perfect. So now we're going to read, the rest of this.
As such, if we concentrate our loving propensities upon Krishna only, then immediately universal love, unity and tranquility will be automatically realized. When one waters the root of a tree, he automatically waters the branches, twigs, leaves and flowers. When one supplies food to the stomach through the mouth, he satisfies all the various parts of the body.
Okay, so there's some slokas that Prabhupada is describing here in this paragraph. The first is 529, which Prabhupada calls the peace formula. Because if we can understand these three qualities of Krishna, the four qualities of Krishna, then we can really get peace. You can read that.
Muktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suradam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shanti vracchati. A person in full Krishna consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries.
Yes. These four qualities of Krishna, the Bhoktaram, he's the supreme enjoyer, the Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam, he's the enjoyer of all of our austerities and sacrifices. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he's the Lord of all the planets, all the people. Suridam Sarvabhutanam, he's the dearmost friend of all living entities. So if we can remember these three qualities of Krishna, then we can attain real peace.
I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
Yes, so Prabhupada described in this paragraph how Krishna is in every living entity's heart. Now, Prabhupada then, he gave the English translation of this very important quote that Narada spoke to the Prachetas. It's Srimad Bhagavatam 4:31-14. And here's the translation.
As pouring water on the root of the tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach enlivens the senses and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Supreme Personality.
So these are the two examples given in the sloka and also given by Srila Prabhupada in this paragraph, by pouring water on the root of a tree and also by supplying food to the stomach. Everyone is satisfied. So when we love Krishna, automatically we love all living entities.
The art of focusing one's attention on Supreme and giving one's love to Him is called Krishna consciousness. We have inaugurated the Krishna consciousness movement so that everyone can satisfy his propensity for loving others simply by directing his love towards Krishna. The whole world is very much anxious to satisfy the dormant propensity of love for others. But the inventions of various methods like socialism, communism, altruism, humanitarianism, nationalism, and whatever else may be manufactured for the peace and prosperity of the world are all useless and frustrating because of our gross ignorance of the art of loving Krishna.
So a lot of times Srila Prabhupada gives different lists of different types of political theories. And how many of us know what these theories actually mean? So there's a way to remember these theories. It's called the two cows understanding of different political systems. So we have a definition of all the lists that Prabhupada gave here, starting with socialism, then communism.
This is in Krishna book, introduction, yeah?
Yes, the preface.
Amazing.
Well, we're going into detail of what
Yeah, I know.
Prabhupada's speaking about. So what is socialism?
Socialism. Production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the government.
Okay.
So you have two cows, the government takes them and puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows. You have to take care of all the cows. The government gives you milk.
So that's an example with two cows. We have theory and we have practical, using two cows. That's socialism. The government takes the cows and they give you have to take care of all the cows and they give you some milk.
Communism. All property is owned by the government. Each person contributes and receives according to their ability and needs. All property.
That's the theory of communism.
Yeah, it's never happened.
I know, that's why it's called theory. Now in practice,
You have two cows. You have to take care of them, but the government takes all the milk and then gives you what they decide you need.
is that what communism
They
is?
keep more for themselves.
Yes, of course. Right.
Yeah, we experience all that.
Right.
Altruism. Willingness to do things that bring advantages to others, even if it results in disadvantage for yourself. You have two cows, you give them away to a needy family, and now you don't have any cows. Humanitarianism. The promotion of human welfare. You have two cows, you take care of the cows and give the milk to others as welfare. Nationalism. Identification with one's own nation and support for its interests. You have two cows, you make sure they are deshi cows and donate the cows or profits of the milk sales to protect the interest of your nation.
Okay. So now when we read all these lists, by remembering about the two cows, hopefully we can all remember what these different things mean. Okay, now.
Art of,
Yes, the last one, the art of loving
the
Krishna.
art of loving Krishna, using everything in Krishna's loving service. You have two cows, you take care of them as loving service to Krishna. Offer the cow's products to Krishna and receive them back as Krishna's prasadam.
Right. So if I ask you what is altruism, anyone can remember?
You donate your cows to somebody and you have no
And you have
cows.
nothing, right? And humanitarianism?
What is it? You give the milk to.
That's right. You keep the cows, but you give the milk to somebody else as welfare. So. But the best of all of these systems is the art of loving Krishna. That's Krishna consciousness. Okay, what
Give
comes
to
next?
Krishna, Krishna, give everything to you.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we up to now?
So,
Generally, people
Generally,
think.
people think that by advancing the cause of moral principles and religious rights, they will be happy. Others may think that happiness can be achieved by economic development, and yet others think that simply by sense gratification they will be happy. But the real fact is that people can only be happy by loving Krishna.
Okay, so we have the 4 goals of human society, and that is Dharma, which is moral and religious principles that Prabhupada speaks about here, moral principles and religious rights. He doesn't use many Sanskrit terms in the Krishna book because the devotees are all very new at that time, 1969, 1970. So he just explains it as simply as he can in English. But now we understand a little bit of the terms. We can translate it into Dharma, meaning the moral and religious principles, Artha, meaning economic development, Kama, meaning sense gratification, he says here. Others think that simply by sense gratification they will be happy. So that's Kama. And they all come in a line. Because if you are religious, then by acting religiously, you can get economic development. And then when you have economic development, then you can get the things you need so that you can get Kama or sense gratification. And then above that is moksha or liberation. But then, when Prabhupada was here, just like we're listening every morning to the 1972 lectures from Nectar Devotion, he explains a 5th goal of human life.
People generally think that liberation is the ultimate goal or the full achievement. But liberation is a very insignificant thing in the presence of devotional service. Bhagavad says that dharma, artha, kama, moksha,
You can turn
they
it
are
up.
thrown away from the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sridhar Swami confirms it. Atra moksha vancha paryantam nirastam. A devotee is above the point of liberation. Devotional service is called Panchama Purushartha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given his opinion. Prema Martho Mahan. Our ultimate goal of life is neither dharma or artha or religiosity.
I'm sorry. Oh, what did I do?
Economic development, kama or sense gratification, and moksha, liberation.
Okay. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's given us the 5th and the highest of all the goals of human life, and that is love of Krishna.
Krishna can perfectly reciprocate one's loving propensities in different relationships called mellows or rasas. Basically, there are 12 loving relationships. One can love Krishna as a supreme. You have to scroll down.
Scroll down.
Basically, there are 12 loving relationships. One can love Krishna as a supreme unknown, as a supreme master, the supreme friend, the supreme child, the supreme lover. These are the 5 basic love rasas.
So most of us know what those 5 are. You can say what they are, someone?
Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya.
Yes. All right.
These are the 5 basic love rasas. One can also love Krishna indirectly in 7 different relationships, which are apparently different from the 5 primary relationships. All in all, however, if one simply reposes his dormant loving propensity in Krishna, then his life becomes successful. This is not a fiction, but is a fact that can be realized by practical application. One can directly perceive the effects of that love. One can directly perceive the effects that love for Krishna has on his life.
So the 7 indirect we can take from the Nectar Devotion.
As Sri Rupa Goswami elaborately explains in his Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu, there are 5 main rasas. neutrality, servitude, friendship, parental love, and conjugal love. And 7 secondary rasas: amazement, adbhuta; humor, hasya; chivalry, veera; compassion, karuna; fury, raudra; fear, bhayanaka; and dread, bibhatsa.
Yes, so these 7, they are subordinate to the 5 main rasas. And Srila Rupa Goswami describes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu which ones are friends to the 5 main rasas and which ones are enemies. In other words, there's some of the rasas that don't fit. Like for instance, Rodra. Rodra wouldn't fit in Madhurya Ras, things like that. So different rasas go together and other rasas don't go together with these 7 subordinate rasas. So it's a great science to understand these rasas. And then when we read about the different leelas of Krishna, we can identify these rasas and how they're supporting each other and how they're embellishing each other, nourishing each other with these 7 temporary rasas that come.
This is okay.
In the
In the
9th.
9th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, this science of Krishna consciousness is called the king of all knowledge, the king of all confidential things, and the supreme science of transcendental realization. Yet we can directly experience the result of this science of Krishna consciousness because it is very easy to practice and is very pleasurable. Whatever percentage of Krishna consciousness we can perform will become an eternal asset to our life, for it is imperishable in all circumstances. It has now been actually proved that today's confused and frustrated younger generation in Western countries can directly perceive the results of channeling the loving propensity toward Krishna alone.
So Prabhupada speaks of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, and we have that sloka here, 9.2.
Rajavidya Rajakuliham Pavitram Vidamuttamam Pratyakshavadamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartumam Duyam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and is joyful purport.
Yes. So you see, Prabhupada is very simply giving the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to us in this preface, preparing us for understanding Krishna's Leela. But behind his simple words, there's so much knowledge that now we have access to because Prabhupada gave us so much more in his translations. So we should be very grateful to Srila Prabhupada. He first gave us the simplest philosophy, and then when he had time, because he was always asking his managers that he wanted to spend more time translating. So as much time as he had, he would wait till everyone was sleeping, and then 1 o'clock in the morning he would start his translation work while all of us little children were sleeping. And with that time, from 1 o'clock until Mangalarti time, he gave us his Bhakti-Vedanta purports and was able to give us up to 10:13. So by Prabhupada's grace, we're trying to understand Krishna's Leela through the Krishna book simply, and then gradually, through the translation of the 10th canto, we'll go deeper into the understanding of what Krishna did. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.